Welcome to the Simon Says Music podcast. In this series, we will be talking to unsigned and independent music artists and bands about their musical journey so far. In the podcast, I will be joined by my very good friend, music producer, technician, and everything else, Nathan Scott.
Pleasure to be here. Please drop a subscribe on wherever you're listening to this. It helps us out more than you can know, and enjoy.
Welcome, Dan. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Si, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you, despite everything that's happened recently, but still managing to do the podcast, which is brilliant.
Awesome.
So, congratulations on the new single. Really happy with that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's exciting to finally get stuff out.
Yay. So tell us all, the song's called Every Boring Sunday Afternoon. Is it really boring? And what's the song about?
Well, I was struck with the notion. It was early on in the first lockdown in the UK. I'd not seen. It was about this time last year that I wrote it. I'd not seen any of my friends or family for nigh on 2 months. I hadn't given my mum a hug in that time, or anyone else, and I was just struck by like how much I just missed even like the dull bits. Like even when you're just all sat around on a sofa just looking at your phones, there's like a lull in conversation, and you kind of just, it's like a rainy afternoon and nothing's really going on, and how we all sort of take that sort of thing for granted. And it's just, the song is kind of like a promise to all of my loved ones that I'll never take them for granted like that ever again, and appreciate them even in the boring bits on a boring Sunday afternoon.
Nice. And you mentioned that, your website mentions, I should say, that you're an alt country and alt Americana artist and an alt rock performer. Try and get them all in there. How would you describe your current song?
Okay. The label thing has always been, it's really tricky for me, is finding exactly what it is you call me, because I don't sound particularly like one thing, which is not to say that it's like out there and avant-garde or anything. It's just very difficult to sort of say it's clearly one thing. But I would describe the new song as being that it's probably, this one's a bit closer to alt rock than anything else that I've been doing. But I'd say one of the bigger influences in like my songwriting and guitar playing is kind of like Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac.
Great band.
I'm nowhere near as good as he is, but yeah, just in terms of just their songwriting in particular, like Rumours is like an album that's really close to my heart.
Oh, definitely. Oh. So I actually read somewhere that you started as a rock singer before you became into the Americana and acoustic scene.
I did, yeah. I started playing music when I was about 14. I just realised I did it. I made a mistake in a previous interview and said it was my mum that did this, but it was my grandmother that did this. My grandmother found an ad in the local paper when I was 14 for something that was going on at my local music venue called Rock School. And Rock School was like a half-term project for teenagers, like ages like 13 to 19, where you could come to the building for a week and you all get sort of put up into bands, and you all like rehearse covers and write songs, and also learn a little bit about the behind the scenes production, like lighting and sound and all the rest. And my grandma found it and passed that on to my mum and said, I think this would be really, really good for Dan. I think he'd enjoy this. And, God rest her soul, my grandmother, who's no longer with us. If she don't know where I would be now, but the first that first rock school that I went to, the band that I formed there, I was in and out of that band for well over 10 years. So that was a really formative experience for me. And it started as like quite hard rock music, but very quickly we got into like screaming our tits off and and playing really heavy shit. So the people who kind of know me from back then and hear what I'm doing now go, really? Is this the same guy? Is he doing? He's doing this now? Okay.
Would you ever consider going back to the hard rock that you've done before?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it was so enjoyable. I mean, we have me and some of the guys from that band. We have actually started kind of just doing some nicer recordings of some of the songs that we were doing back then, just like for fun for ourselves. We're not planning to do anything with it, although, you know, watch this space, maybe something else will happen later on. But yeah, it's not like I retreated from it because I don't like it anymore. It was more to do with the fact is, I think something happens when you're a music artist and you get past, say, age 25, where trying to get yourself and 3 to 4 other people in a band into a room to practice is like herding cats.
Yep.
Yeah, just trying to get everyone together in a room to rehearse was becoming a nightmare for good reason. It's like we all had lives. Some of us had families. We had jobs that we had to that were becoming more and more demanding of us, and it just got to the stage where I was bashing my head against the brick wall trying to schedule people to get into a room, and that's part of the reason I ended up going solo, because it's the joke I usually make is when trying to book a gig at the moment, if someone calls up and offers me a gig and I just go, okay, let me ask the band. Yeah, the band say it's fine. As opposed to in the past when I'd have to phone around 4 other people and check that they're all right for dates and everything else. But
I guess it's somewhat easier.
Sorry?
I guess it's somewhat easier, isn't it?
Oh, it's miles easier. There is a trade-off. I mean, obviously, there's like I do miss like the kind of the collaborative part of being in a band, but yeah, I'm definitely enjoying what I'm doing now as a solo artist.
It's always tricky, isn't it? Because there's always one guy who forgets to tell his missus that he's booked this day, and then all of a sudden he can't make it because it's auntie's birthday or something like that, and you know, all spirals from there.
That guy is me. I still do that now. I was trying to book because I mean, I can't announce anything yet, but you know, by the time this podcast goes out, maybe I can. But I have got a gig in the real world coming up in the pipeline, and I got contacted about a gig with this promoter, and I was like, "Yeah, man, absolutely, that sounds great." And then I told my wife, and she's like, "Have you forgotten what we're doing that week?" I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, we're away, aren't we?" And then I was like, I messaged the promoter back, who was very nice about it. I just said to him, I made the mistake of saying yes without checking with the boss first, and the boss has said we're away. Do you have anything else available? And yeah, no, he saw the funny side of it and found me something else pretty quickly.
So this going back to your releases, Every Boring Sunday Afternoon isn't your first release, is it?
It is not, no. I did put an EP out in 2018, and which you bought, Simon.
I did.
I'm trying to. Well, thank you very much. I'm trying to recall actually. Like, I keep racking my brains for this. I'm like, how did we first meet? How did you come across me?
I was gonna say we met. This sounds really dirty, but we met online, I think.
Whoa!
Whoa! There you go. Simon says X-rated podcast.
Dirty chat rooms. I remember like seeing you bought my EP off of my Musical.ly page, and I was like, oh, who's this guy? This is cool. This is someone I don't know who's buying my stuff.
Some random person who just kind of stalks musicians. I don't do that. I don't.
But it's in the nicest possible way. You're a great supporter of artists.
Well,
but yeah, no, so I put that EP out in 2018, and it was the first time I was working with my producer Martin, who I've worked with all of my releases since that one, and whilst I'm still quite proud of the work we did on it, but it was definitely a case of I wasn't really sure what I was doing yet. It was the first time. It wasn't the first thing I put out, because I put out a single before that was just me and a guitar. But it was the first time I was working with a producer where we were trying to get like a broader sound around it, like get additional instrumentation and everything else. And I kind of just went in with the songs, just not really knowing what the bigger picture was going to be. So they developed in they developed organically in the studio, but not in a way that was had like a kind of unified direction to it. I mean, Martin, my producer, Martin the producer on Facebook, go check him out. Martin Lumsden on everything, all the other socials. Bless him, he did his best to try and pull something together, and he did a really, really great job with it. But yeah, it was definitely a learning experience for me. It taught me a little bit more about what worked, what didn't work, who I am as an artist. So I think it's to the point where everything that we're doing now has got a lot more focus and clarity to it.
So how do you go about the recording process now with your producer? You know, do you find that since that first EP that you've got pretty much an idea of the direction you want it to go? Obviously, working with the same producer, you build up a bit of a rapport. You get to know how both of your brains work. You know, how's that process?
Yeah, that's become a lot. That's a good question. It's become a lot clearer now, I think. With a lot of this set of songs, as I'm referring to them, there will be an EP eventually somewhere down the line. A lot of this set of songs were recorded whilst we were under lockdown. We'd started recording a little bit of it around February, and then everything kind of got shut down for obvious reasons. But what helped is that I've got the ability to kind of do some like rudimentary recording stuff at home. So I was sending him demos of things and going, what do you think about, here's what I've got next. What are your thoughts on this? And he was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then he'd sort of bounce some ideas back at me, and we'd kind of refine things that way, kind of going back and forth. So but by the time the lockdown restrictions were a bit more eased, I'm not even sure if that's a very clear sentence or not, but by the time the restrictions were eased a little bit, we were able to go into the studio and kind of hit our marks a little bit more, and we knew a little bit more about what it is we were achieving with the individual tracks, and therefore it kind of had a bit more of a voice early on. But yeah, we definitely know a little bit more about how we think in terms of writing songs. I have learned things about writing songs from Martin that I don't know if I could have learned anywhere else. Like, he taught me about like songwriting economics in the sense that with my first EP, the most egregious example was there was a song that's probably about 4.5 minutes now, and it was like nearly 6 minutes when I first came in, and he was like, okay, how can we streamline this a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To
the point where if I was to hear the original 6-minute version again, I'd go like, oh, stop, this is so long.
An epic ballad, there you go.
I'm not Freddie Mercury. I can't write Bohemian Rhapsody. Not yet, at least.
So
I hope that answered your question.
No, it definitely did, yeah.
How would you say your new EP, when it's released, is different to the first one?
Well, like I say, it's definitely, it's got more of a personality, I guess. It's more sure of itself in terms of where it sits musically. I mean, that's not to say there's not variation on it. There's quite a lot of variation on it, but there's more of a unifying sound to it. And I'd say that the songwriting's better. And I'm not of course I would say that because I'm obviously gonna say that my new stuff's better than my old stuff, but I'm not the only one to have said it as well. Martin has turned around to me and said, yeah, no, I think your songwriting has improved on this one versus the previous stuff that we did. Yeah, I think I've run out of steam on that thought.
No, that's cool. I'm just trying to think of the wording of the next question, because I was going to say your first album then. Your first EP seemed to be quite personal as well to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've dabbled with different ways of writing music before, and I have tried writing sort of less personal songs. Personal songwriting is kind of like the style that I go for. There was one song that's never made it on anything, and I think I only ever played it live once, where I tried to write about something topical. In fact, I tried to write a topical song once, and I tried to write a political song once, and I very quickly realised that they are not comfortable fits for me, particularly with the topical one, is it was about sort of a national tragedy that happened, without going into too much detail. But it felt sort of crass of me to be like capitalizing in a strange way. Like, I mean, I know that obviously not everyone would see it that way, but I felt like this feels like I'm just using the tragedy to say, look at me, in a weird way, and I wasn't comfortable with that. And it would immediately, the song would feel immediately dated, like after the event had died down. And so I went, no, I'm not going to keep on playing that. I have subsequently used that melody on something else, but I thought, well, I like the melody and the music, but I'm not so sure that that song's for me. So yeah, writing songs about what I deal with personally is what I know, and it's what I'm, for want of a better word, what I'm good at.
That's a good way to express emotions and feelings, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you find it helps you, put feelings out there? I think it's a particularly guy thing, to not sound too sexist, to struggle to outpour, emotions. And actually, a lot of singer-songwriters find that it's a good way of dealing with various things, good or bad. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's Simon, you'll know this really well, but there's a song on my first EP called "The Hole You Leave Behind."
Get ready for the tears, everybody.
That song is about something very, very personal that happened to me and my wife in October of 2017. The short version of the story is that we found out that we were going to be parents, and then shortly afterwards we were no longer going to be parents, and we miscarried. It's a really weird one to talk about, but it's like you say, it's the only way that a lot of songwriters know how to deal with things. So I just kind of exercised all of my grief over it by just pouring it onto a page and setting it to music.
Sorry. Just give me a minute. Yeah, you're gonna start me off again.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'll be too. Sorry.
No, I'm quite proud of that one. That one's quite different to a lot of the rest of that EP as well, and it's very stark. Like that, when I came in to Martin and said, I don't think I want any additional instrumentation. I just want this to be me and a guitar.
It is a beautiful song.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much, man.
Yeah.
I did meet someone once, and I got asked to play it. One of my close friends, Jack. I played music at his stag do, and I was doing a set there, and it's that song kind of forms part of a trilogy of songs that are loosely about me and my wife. There's a song about when we got married, a song about that, and then there's the song about when our daughter was born. And I played part one. I played "You Make Loving Easy," which is part one, and then I said something on stage about it's like a 3-part series of songs. I would play part 2, but it's kind of depressing, and it's a party crowd. And Jack, the stag, looked at me and went, no, dude, please play it. Like, are you sure? I was like, honestly, it's such a great song. Please play it. I was like, okay, cool. If you guys want to be really bummed out, and but within 3 or 4 minutes, had a room full of grown men weeping, and one of the guys who had never met before, he came to me and said, "Oh man, just that song is your masterpiece." And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And all that means though is it's all downhill from here. If that's the peak, then yeah, I've peaked way too early.
Does it stand out to you as a piece of song? I don't want to delve too deep into the details behind it, and if anyone wants to listen to the song, go out there and listen to it, because it is amazing. But have you found that stands out compared to other songs you've written? Do you see it as your masterpiece, as well as other people saying it?
I wouldn't say it's my masterpiece. There are other songs that I've written that I'm sort of more proud of, like musically and lyrically, in terms of I feel like that's a more clever lyric, that's a nicer melody. As like a piece of work, it definitely stands out to me in my work, in the sense that it's the most tragic thing that's ever happened in my lifetime. And I was discussing this with somebody once, said there are very few events that kind of rank higher than that on the scale. And I hope that I don't have to encounter too many of those. So that it's going to be one of the worst things that happens in my lifetime. So it's because of that, it's always going to be a really personal song to me. So it is one that sort of, it's very close to my heart. I wouldn't, without kind of calling it my masterpiece or anything, because I'm hoping that all of my music gets better from here.
Yeah. Do you find that? Do you often, you mentioned about the stag do? Do you often try and hold it back when playing live? In certain settings, do you find that, or do you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. There are certain songs that I just don't play live particularly often. That's one of them. Not because I don't think it's a good song, not at all. In fact, it's usually just a case of a lot of where I end up playing is like in the corner of a pub, and it's whilst everyone's having a good time. And I don't want to suddenly come up and go, okay, so this is a song about when my wife and I miscarried, and then just like kill the mood. It's at the right gig. It's a great one to put out. What you need is it to be a really intimate show.
Yeah.
Where like I don't know if you got either of you are familiar with Minnie Birch, but if you're ever at one of her shows, one of those sorts of shows where you can hear a pin drop from the audience and you've got those really attentive crowds. I pull it out when I feel like, oh, this is actually going to be well received, because it's one of those songs that you want people to listen and take it in. Whereas some of my songs, like All the World's a Stage, which is on the same EP, that's the only song on there that's entirely fictional. I mean, it's an ethos that I adhere to, but the lyrics and the story within the lyrics itself is completely made up, and just based on, I think it was kind of just a songwriting exercise when I was writing it. It was like, bet you can't write something, because I was writing a lot of maudlin songs at the time. It's like, write something that's upbeat that will get people moving a bit more. So yeah, that one I can kind of go to any gig and play, and people will be like, oh yeah, cool, this is fun. But the other one, Holding You Leave Behind, not so much.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's really wise, because I've been to far too many, as you say, pub gigs where everyone's having a drink after work, and someone pulls out a song that just brings, I think, as you said, there's a time and a place for it. And I think for anyone out there who's starting songwriting process, starting playing live, pick and choose really, because you don't want to. It's not so much about just pleasing a crowd. I think it's about honoring that song and its intention. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I've definitely had that. Like early on, I have played that at certain sort of quieter pub shows, but yeah, pub shows are a particular problem in that, not a problem, but there's an issue you get with pub shows where you're not necessarily the reason that people are in there. Like if you're playing a gig at a venue, people have come to watch live music, so there's a difference. But if you're playing in a pub, someone might have just wandered into the pub because they fancy a drink, or they
play
like
Wonderwall,
God.
Yeah, don't remind me of that. Dan and I have a pet hate for that.
Yeah, that's
We're looking at you, Ryan. Looking at you, Ryan.
That's our unwritten rule on this podcast, that if anyone does play Wonderwall live, they're not invited.
They're out. No, they're out.
Anyway, here's Wonderwall.
That was lovely. Thank you for talking to us.
No, good. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, no, that was it with the song. Early on, I played it in some of the quieter pub shows, and you'd get like, I'd be playing that song. I feel quite protective of that song in a way, because of its subject matter. And if you play it and people aren't really paying attention, you feel like it feels like more of a kick in the nuts to me than if someone's ignoring the rest of my set. I'm like, ignore my other songs as much as you like, but please listen to this one, because it's like, this is me opening up to a room full of people. So yeah, now I'm very, very selective of when it is that I'll play it. It's quite rare, actually. I don't remember the last time I played it publicly.
Well, yeah, I think that's wise, because as you said, and I'm sure this is a lot the same for people listening, is that songwriting can be very deeply personal, and there's a time, there's certainly songs I've written that have never seen the light of day because they were an emotional exercise for me. And as you said, you feel protective over those songs, and you don't want to tarnish that by just throwing that out to any crowd that's not really listening, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's your
no worries, thank you.
The process of that and how you've journeyed with that's very deeply personal.
You're very welcome, thank you very much.
So going back to your songwriting lyrics, I'm going to change it to a little bit of a happier note now.
Yeah.
Or a lighter note before we
let's cheer everyone up.
Yeah. Who would you say your main influences are? Not Noel Gallagher. I can't say. Sorry. I can't even say his name.
Do you want to take that one again for the podcast?
I think we should just keep that in.
Yeah, I think we should keep that in.
I was going to say it's Porky Pig trying to say his name.
Oh God,
Mr. Noel Gallagher. So I believe what you were asking there, Simon, is who my influences are.
Yes.
I get all sorts of places that I get my influences from. I'm massively into the Foo Fighters, so Dave Grohl's ability to write a song is always kind of an inspiration to me. Fleetwood Mac are in their songwriting. Chris Stapleton on the more country side of things, he's a really incredible artist. Jason Isbell is another one he's a really interesting one to me because he sort of straddles this line between like folk, country and rock, where he doesn't quite fit neatly into any one of those, but like it's this beautiful blending of all of them. He kind of gets lumped in as a country artist, but it's like similarly with Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton's probably a bit more country than Jason Isbell is, but like you're doing their songwriting a disservice by just saying it's that, because like there's like this soul in there as well, and like these R&B influences and stuff. But yeah, those guys are really high up on my list. Chuck Reagan is another one who I really, really love as well. Like I found him just on one of those like those Spotify like when you go not a playlist, but it's like where you go on like a rabbit hole. That's kind of what I was going for. Like you go on a Spotify rabbit hole, kind of, you know how you get like YouTube rabbit holes where you got one video and then it takes you to another one, well with Spotify I was on one artist and then it was like fans also like, okay, let's check out this guy. Oh yes, this is great. Oh okay, what else? Oh, fans also like this band. Oh cool, awesome. Oh, and then this girl and everything else. And I found Jason Isbell that way. And Chuck Reagan in that way as well. And it's one of those like really, really happy accidents where you go, oh my God, I can't believe I just found this amazing artist.
I was going to say, is there much else you want to cover, really?
But where can we actually find all your music?
Currently, I'm on Spotify. You can find me on there. I'm also on Bandcamp. Very much appreciative of people who go and buy the music directly off of Bandcamp, because obviously most of that money goes to the artists, whereas Spotify and Apple Music, much less of it goes to the artists, but we won't get too bogged down in that debate. If you, especially on the first Friday of the month, Bandcamp waive all their fees so that all of the money goes directly to the artist. So on the first Friday of the month, if you'd like to come and look at my Bandcamp page, danthomassolo.bandcamp.com, and that would be fabulous. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dan.
It's also available on all of the normal digital channels.
Oh yeah,
as
of course. And we can find you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the socials.
Yeah, at Dan Thomas Solo is the handle you want to use for that.
Awesome. Well, it's great talking to you, Dan.
And you, man. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure.
Nathan,
thanks everyone for listening.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you virtually.
Hopefully one day soon.
Yeah, hopefully one day in person.
In the flesh.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.